Hello, my friend. Before I forget everything from my Part 107 test, I wanted to set up a camera before it rains at my house, put on the mic and just talk through what it was like for me to get an 82% on the new FAA Part 107 test. Before I continue, I should say I probably wouldn't be making this video if not for the fact that the FAA has updated the Part 107 test in 2021. And it feels like I am one of the first people to be taking this test and talking about it on the internet. And as I began studying for my test, I wanted to hear from people who have taken the new version to know if it was very different from everything that was online up to the new change. So that's primarily why I'm making this video. I'm not a drone channel and I'm not going to be making a full study guide. I'm sure those videos will come out for the new test, and there are some great resources that already exist that I am going to talk about. But in this video, I just really wanted to talk about how I studied, how confident I felt, what it was like taking the test, some of the new material, and then maybe give some advice. But I'm gonna try and keep this short if possible, but feel free to skip to the parts you want to listen to. So here's pretty much how I studied, but first there's a little bit of background. I feel very confident with standardized tests. I have always done pretty well on them, and so for this one I thought, okay, I'll take this test and I'll study pretty good, but you know, I'm not going to commit too much time to this because I've got a lot of stuff going on. And so I would say I studied for 7 hours in total. I watched the Tony Northrup video once, maybe once and a half. The Better B-roll test practice exam thing I watched. And then a handful of update videos on the new drone regulations concerning remote ID, flying over people, flying at night. And then I watched a handful of like test experience videos, like what was it like to take the test. And I found those to be really helpful, and so that's why I wanted to make this video. And there was only a couple out there about the new material on the test. And so anyway, that's pretty much how I studied. I usually feel very confident on standardized tests, and I flagged 50% of the questions. I was pretty nervous afterwards about whether or not I passed, and I'll touch on that more later. But anyway, I was unsure, and so I probably, if I could go back, I would study a little more. Oh, I did take 3 practice tests that I forgot to mention, so I'll link everything that I did below, but 3 practice tests and those videos that I watched. And I could have studied more to feel more confident, but part of that is related to the new material, and I'm going to touch on that more later as well. So now, what was the actual testing experience like? I showed up at PSI, which is like a testing center, and I walked in, showed them my ID, my driver's license. I put all of my things in the Ziploc or the zipped bag that they have to lock in front of you and make sure that all of your stuff is in there, including my hat. And so then you go into the actual exam room and you're in like a cubicle computer room. It's like no windows, nothing on the walls. It's just cubicles with computers. And so it's a little bit intimidating, honestly, because it's kind of, you know, quiet. Everybody's just clacking on a keyboard. Everybody's taking different tests. And so anyway, it's a little bit intimidating. So, you know, I would just tell you to be prepared for that. If you're not a confident test taker, if you get pretty nervous with these things, just be prepared in advance, study really, really well. Just know that the room is gonna feel a little bit like stagnant and kind of weird. And when you're in there, you'll sit down at your cubicle, you'll sign into your computer, and then your test will pop up on the screen. And once you start your tests, before you get in there, they'll give you your Airman's Knowledge Testing booklet. And that was actually funny, but that kind of threw me off because all of the internet resources and all of the practice tests have the booklets and the maps and the charts, you know, on the internet. They're right there. And so, but when you take the test, it says, you know, refer to figure 21. And you have to actually like, okay, find figure 21. And I know that's so silly, but it just kind of threw me off a little bit. And so be prepared for that. You'll have a piece of scratch paper so that you can chart your nautical or statute miles. And you will have to actually use that to see how far away certain locations are from certain airports, things like that. So anyway, then while taking the test, you can flag questions if you're unsure of them and revisit them at the end. And I did that with 50% of the questions. And I would say at the end, out of 30 questions that I flagged of the total 60 questions, I think I changed my answer on 3 of them, and I had left 1 of them blank that I was able to answer at the end because one of the other questions gave me the answer. So because the answer was inside of another question, I was able to actually answer it on my way back through. So anyway, it's important to know that you can flag questions, revisit them afterwards. But anyway, that was my testing experience. Then at the very end, you have to wait almost like 5 to 10 minutes because you have to take like a post-exam survey, and then you have to go out into the office where they have to print your results for you, and you don't know it until they hand you the piece of paper from the printer. So seeing that 82% made me feel really good after having marked 50% of the questions as like unsure. So now the real reason you came, which is probably the new material, and for what was on the test, it basically felt more like it's oriented towards drone pilots now instead of like aircraft pilots. And of course, naturally before the test, I was most nervous about the aircraft pilot kind of things because I don't know sectional charts. I've never seen them before. I don't know runway patterns. I've never learned about that before. And I don't know aircraft operation methods. I've never had to know about that. But the test felt like it emphasized more material concerning aeronautical decision making as a drone pilot and information concerning flying over people, flying at night, remote identification, and drone practice. There's an airplane flying overhead right now. How appropriate is that? So anyway, basically what I'm trying to get at here is that the new material on the test feels like the FAA is finally catching up with us being drone pilots, not airplane pilots. And so I will still tell you that the sectional chart stuff and like the actual operational aircraft management sort of things are on the test, and we are unfamiliar with them as drone pilots, and they are important to know. So definitely still study for them. METAR reports, TAF reports, those are on the test, but they were not as emphasized as I feel like they might have been on the old tests, and as much attention is given to them in old study guides and old videos. So I think some material is gonna have to be updated for the new testing practices from the FAA. And currently, I think the FAA is the only resource that is like truly updated, unless I'm unaware, in which case, please leave a comment, talk about free resources, talk about paid resources. Maybe some of the paid drone institutes or whatever have updated their resources, but I'm not sure of it. And so if you are, please comment that below. It's May of 2021 when I'm recording this, so maybe this is gonna be outdated in a month or two. But anyway, that's pretty much my experience with the new material. So now I'll give some advice. Basically, here's my advice. Learn how to take standardized tests and then become as familiar as possible with this test's materials. I will say Tony Northrup and the Better B-Roll video both talk about this, and I really appreciate that they did, because this is a standardized test. And most standardized tests operate the same way in that they are written by a committee with a purpose. They really want you to understand something, and so they write it in hopes that you'll come out of it understanding it. And so I would say most every question on the test, it's 3 choices, and I would say you can always eliminate one. So you can almost always feel very certain that you have a 50-50 shot of getting the question right. So that is a standardized testing skill that I think is worth learning for this test. Otherwise, there are some other testing skills that I think would be worth learning, but there are a lot of videos about standardized test skills. I would go watch those in addition to all of the drone stuff that you learn. And I haven't heard anyone talk about that, but I think that would be really helpful, especially if you're not a confident test taker. So learn your drone stuff. Definitely study with the resources that are available now until other resources come out, or if there are any. Hopefully you'll see them from people commenting them. So yeah, in addition to the drone stuff, I would say practice some test taking skills, because I really think you can pass this test if you know your drone stuff well enough and if you have some test taking skills, and you can confidently walk in there getting a 50-50 shot on every single question. Well, that is it for this video. Like I said, I am not a drone person. This is not what my channel is about. I hope this video is just helpful to someone who is planning on taking the test soon and knows how to familiarize themselves with the new test. And when resources come out, I hope people will comment so that people can find new and updated resources for the new FAA Part 107 test. So that's it. That's all I have to say. I hope this video is really helpful. If you did find it helpful, please let YouTube know about it. Subscribe, comment, like, do those sorts of things. It really does help me. And oh, I should plug my DJI LUTS right now.